Hello and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. A very good evening and welcome to the daily Hindu news analysis. So let's begin today's discussion by first looking at the topics that we are going to discuss. From the Delhi edition of the Hindu, I have chosen 7 important articles for a detailed analysis so that you don't have to go back and read the newspaper again. Now, before we start, I have a very important announcement. As we are all set to prepare for the celebration of 79th Independence Day, Unacademy is presenting the Freedom Offer. This provides you a great opportunity to enroll for our online courses at just 17,999. And I have been told by Unacademy's management that this would be the lowest prices and it is not going to return for a long time soon. So if you're looking to enroll for our online classes, this would be the right opportunity, as you also get a 12-month free extension, up to 12 months of free extension. For those interested, click on the link in the video description and enter the code IAS English. This offer ends on the 14th of August. So if interested, click on the link in the video description. And if you want the PDF of this session, please scan the QR code on your screen and join my Telegram channel, because after the session ends, I'll be sharing the detailed PDF over here. So let's get started and look at the first article. On page number 6, the Hindu carries an editorial on ethanol blending program. Recently, the government of India has brought out a proposal to increase ethanol blending up to 27% in order to make ethanol 27 petrol available across the country. So the government of India is looking to raise the ethanol blending target under the ethanol blending program. And this has generated a lot of positive response as well. But there are some concerns which are also coming up. So in this context, let's understand what is ethanol blending. Why is ethanol blended with petrol? What are the advantages? What is the ethanol blending program of India, the history of it? What advantages does it hold for India? And what is this new proposal being considered? And what are the risks and concerns that is coming up? See, ethanol blending refers to the blending of ethyl alcohol, the blending of ethanol, which is essentially a type of biofuel that is derived from plant sources. So when ethanol is blended with petrol, it essentially has a number of positive effects. When such a fuel is burned, it contributes to less pollution, less emissions, and overall it reduces your dependency on fossil fuels. It will reduce the requirement for crude oil consumption. So it reduces the dependency on fossil fuels and has environmental benefits. It will help in tackling pollution and bring down emissions as well. And hence, around the world, ethanol blending is considered as a much cleaner alternative. Though it's not a clean fuel, it is relatively cleaner compared to traditional petrol. So ethanol blending is something that you see around the world in most countries. Ethanol blended petrol and fuel variants are available. And India also has rolled out a ethanol blending program. India launched this initiative back in 2003. So over the last 2 decades, India has stepped up ethanol blending and we have made this fuel available almost across the country. Now it's about the percentage of ethanol which is blended. Usually countries, they start out with 5% blending, where in, let's say, 100 ml of fuel, 95 ml would be petrol, 5 ml would be ethanol. They will slowly scale this up to 10%, 20%, and beyond. There are few countries where even ethanol 90 is available. Is that clear? So ethanol is seen as this alternative source of fuel derived from plant-based sources, which is blended with petrol to bring about these economic and environmental benefits. So ethanol blending has numerous advantages for a country like India. Because I'm sure you know that India is heavily dependent on oil imports. We are an energy deficient country when it comes to fossil fuel resources. And almost 85% of India's oil requirement is imported from other countries. So our energy security is dependent on those countries that supply crude oil and natural gas to India. We also end up increasing our import bill. We incur a significant cost in paying for the crude oil that we are importing from other nations. So this not only creates a sort of economic dependency, but it is also a geopolitical risk. When you're dependent on few countries to supply oil, you're not only draining your forex reserves, but you're creating a dependency which could become a geopolitical risk as well. Because the global oil market is very volatile, it's very sensitive to geopolitical changes. Any conflict or any supply disruptions could easily hurt the oil prices, and this will significantly impact our import bill. And it has a domino effect on our economy. It can affect the macroeconomic factors in our economy. So ethanol blending is a blessing for a country like India. A country which has such excessive dependency on oil imports will stand to benefit with ethanol blending. This can help guarantee energy security as it lowers the requirement for crude oil imports. When you blend ethanol, it will obviously ensure energy security and reduces your import dependency. It will bring down the import bill, resulting in significant savings for the country's forex reserves. According to estimates, India is saving nearly $10 billion every year because of the ethanol blending program that we have. Our import bill has been brought down by nearly $10 billion every year, and this is a very significant cost reduction and guarantees your energy security and reduces the dependency on these countries. Plus, it has numerous environmental benefits. It will reduce overall carbon emissions. It will help us meet our climate action targets under the Paris Agreement. The extent of pollution is also much lower because of the lower carbon content. So it not only helps tackle air pollution, but it also helps in mitigating climate change effects. So there are many, many advantages like this. And since I told you that this biofuel, a type of biofuel, is generated from plant sources, the agriculture sector and rural economy can also stand to benefit. Because the ethanol which is blended, it is produced by using sources such as sugarcane, the sugarcane molasses, or even grains such as rice, then maize, sorghum. These plant sources are used primarily as a organic biomass to produce ethyl alcohol of up to 99% purity, which is used to produce ethanol that is blended with petrol. So this will directly translate into benefits for farmers. Farmers can focus on these crops, which serves as a feedstock for the biofuel industry. It increases farmers' income, benefits Indian agriculture, and strengthens rural economy as well. Farmers can even be pushed to diversify the cropping pattern. And more importantly, you can use wasteful food items and food crops to ensure that waste utilization can also happen in the economy. Let's say there is excess sugarcane being produced, or the grains which are stored in warehouses is rotten, like broken rice, for example, or rotten food grains. They could all be diverted towards the biofuel industry instead of wasting the food product. So this minimizes wastage in the agriculture sector and brings enormous benefits to farmers and the rural economy. So there are numerous advantages of blending ethanol with petrol. That is why India rolled out a very ambitious program. In fact, the world had started blending ethanol from 1970s itself. This point from history is very important. Please make a note. When the global economy was hit by the oil crisis of 1970s, that is when few countries started blending ethanol in order to reduce their import dependency. To avoid buying the expensive oil, few countries they started blending ethanol from 1970s itself. So India was pretty late to start ethanol blending. We launched the program in 2003 with the initial goal of achieving 5% ethanol blended petrol, which should be made available across the country. So it took few years for India to achieve this target. Initially, the program was pretty slow, but post 2013, India has really accelerated the ethanol blending program. We had set a target of achieving 10% ethanol blending, which was achieved across the country by 2019 in most parts of India. Ethanol 10 is already available as standard fuel. The government of India set an even more ambitious target to ensure that the entire country is covered with ethanol 10 petrol by 2022. And by the end of the decade, the goal was to achieve ethanol 20 being made available across India, across every state and union territory. And recently, the Modi government has advanced the target. Since India was confident of achieving this target, the target deadline has been advanced from 2030 to 2025. So according to Government of India, the goal of blending 20% ethanol has been achieved across the country. So now the government wants to take the next step, move towards 27% blended ethanol on par with other developing nations like Brazil. Brazil has already rolled out E27 fuel. So India is likely to follow in the footsteps of Brazil. Now that we have achieved the E20 target by 2025, the government is likely to roll out the new norms by the end of this month to introduce 27% ethanol blended petrol starting from this year itself. Now, this presents numerous opportunities as we already discussed. It will further secure our energy security, reduce our oil imports, reduces our import bill, reduces our dependency on other countries as well. It has benefits for farmers and agriculture sector, a lot of environmental benefits as well. But there are many concerns with regard to ethanol blending program. There are several concerns with regard to ethanol blending. Since ethanol is produced primarily through food sources, there is always a risk of food diversion towards biofuel industry. This has always remained a concern that will the biofuel industry threaten food security in the country? Since farmers will find the biofuel sector to be more lucrative, they might sell even edible food grains and food products to the biofuel industry, leading to shortages with regard to availability of essential food items. Imagine if good quality rice and sugarcane is diverted, or let's say vegetable oils are diverted towards biofuel industry because it fetches better profits for farmers. This could lead to shortage of food items, leading to a food security crisis. And also another concern is that some of these crops are water intensive. Take crops like rice, that is paddy, and sugarcane. These are highly water intensive crops, heavily dependent on groundwater based irrigation. So this further puts stress on the environment as well and on water availability. So it's not that ethanol blended petrol is completely friendly towards the environment. It can have a undesired effect, as these water intensive crops could wreak havoc with regard to water availability. So first of all, there could be a concern with regard to food security if there is a diversion of edible food crops and grains. And second, the focus on water intensive crops could affect water availability as well. This could also push farmers to grow only these lucrative crops, which could affect crop diversification. And experts also point out, if farmers are encouraged by the government, let's say the government rolls out certain norms and policies to ensure that edible food grains are not diverted, and government of India has been trying to do that. For example, only C heavy molasses, which is not used for producing sugar, is diverted into biofuel industry. This grade of molasses It is not fit for sugar production, so it's not edible. So it is seen as a waste generated by the sugar industry. Only these molasses are diverted into biofuel industry. Then damaged food grains like broken rice, wheat, etc., rotten food grains and food products, which are rotting in the godowns and warehouses, they are diverted towards the biofuel industry. Experts also believe that maize and millets are much more sustainable if they are encouraged, as they are agriculturally less demanding crops. They require less water and they help in crop diversification as well. Using maize and millets is seen as a better long term solution as well. So experts and the government, they are confident that without affecting food security, we can still divert some of the rotting food grains and the unusable waste from the agriculture industry, along with few sustainable crops like millets and maize, which they feel can be diverted towards biofuel industry. But however, this strategy also has a problem. The critics point out that if you are looking to increase agricultural production to meet the demands of biofuel industry, to meet the biofuel demand, if you start producing crops specifically for that, then don't you think farmers will need more inputs? Farmers will need more fertilizers, seeds, even pesticides. And a large part of our fertilizers and pesticides are imported. According to data, we end up importing almost $10 billion worth of farm fertilizers and other inputs. That's a very conservative number. So, whatever you're saving in bringing down your oil imports, you will end up spending almost the same or even more for the fertilizers and other farm inputs which are needed to cultivate these crops that are needed for biofuel industry. That is why in any policy you need a holistic approach to understand its pros and cons. Though ethanol blended petrol has a lot of benefits, it can have few of these undesired effects. It can harm the environment. It can push agriculture in the wrong direction. It can even impact the farmers and hurt food security as well. And eventually, we will be increasing our forex spending if we have to procure more fertilizers. Then, apart from that, there are serious concerns about ethanol blended petrol on the durability of your vehicles. Several studies have shown that ethanol blended petrol causes corrosion of the engine parts and the metal components and the fuel system which is present in your bikes, your cars, and vehicles. Though the government of India denies this, the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas has completely rejected these claims as baseless and not rooted in scientific evidence. So there are those who uh, essentially dismiss this very concern, saying it's not scientifically rooted, that there is no evidence to show that ethanol blended petrol causes corrosion of your vehicle. But there are critics who point out that vehicle durability gets compromised. The engine will corrode much sooner. The entire fuel system and the metal components are known to corrode much, much quicker, which could affect the performance and efficiency of your vehicles. Meaning, people will dispose these vehicles, buy more vehicles, which could also increase pollution. And more importantly, it can affect the performance as well. Few studies have shown that ethanol blended petrol yields lesser mileage, especially in a market like India, where the Indian consumer is very sensitive about the mileage of their vehicle. If ethanol blended petrol brings down the mileage, that becomes a disincentive. So these concerns are present. That is why the editorial is urging the government and the automobile manufacturers to be more transparent when it comes to this particular concern. See, according to studies, vehicles which match Bharat Stage 2 norms, vehicles which match Euro 2 norms and above, and the US Tier 1 norms, these are environmental standards set for internal combustion engines. These vehicles, they are perfectly suitable for E15 fuel, up to 15% ethanol. the performance of these vehicles is not likely to be affected. It has been studied, verified, and researched by the auto manufacturers as well. But we don't have enough studies to tell us about the impact of E20 fuel and beyond. Though government dismisses these concerns as baseless, there are experts who believe that ethanol 20 and above could have a very devastating impact on your engines, on the performance of your vehicle, and the internal components might corrode very soon, which will lead to more vehicles being pushed into the market. That is why the editorial is striking a note of caution. The government should be more transparent. The auto manufacturers should test the fuel and provide a clear rating whether this vehicle is suited for ethanol 20, ethanol 27. If the government is pushing for E27, the vehicle manufacturers, they have to test the equipment first, understand what is the impact, the long term consequences, and make this information public and transparent so that the consumers know as to what they are getting into. So this transparency is needed in the policy from the government and as well as from the auto manufacturers, whether the vehicles are fit, are they viable to consume ethanol 20 fuel and above. So if these concerns are addressed, then definitely ethanol blending can be scaled up even further. Now, please take up this practice question and we will discuss the answer writing approach as always. Ethanol blended petrol has enormous economic and environmental benefits, but the rollout of E27 fuel requires careful consideration and transparency to allay all concerns, critically analyze. So there are two parts in this question. So start your answer with an introduction talking about how ethanol can make petrol more environment friendly. Maybe provide the historical context that ethanol blending started in 1970s during the global oil crisis, and you can go on to list out the benefits, advantages of ethanol. Or you can talk about what is ethanol blending? What exactly is ethanol blending? Why did it start? So this is the approach you can take to start your answer, explaining what is ethanol blended petrol. Then in the body, clearly illustrate the economic and environmental advantages. In two separate paragraphs, talk about how import bill can reduce, energy security can be guaranteed, your forex reserves can be saved, and discuss the environmental benefits, the reduction in pollution, reduction in emissions. Talk about the positives of ethanol blending. Then discuss India's ethanol blending program. This has to be the second part of your body. In the first part of the body, you'll discuss the benefits, the economic and environmental benefits. And second part of the body, talk about India's ethanol blending program and what is India's status currently. So you can say that we've achieved ethanol 20 blended fuel much ahead of the target. And now the government is looking to roll out E27. In the third part of the body, address the concerns, all the concerns, the food security concerns, the environmental impact, because crops are water intensive, the agrarian impact as well, as it can affect crop diversification. Talk about the need for more fertilizers, which might increase our forex spending on farm inputs. Just one point about each concern and discuss about the impact on vehicles, the risk of corrosion, the impact on mileage and vehicle efficiency and performance. So in total, there are maybe 5 or 6 concerns. List them out. And then in the conclusion, point out that ethanol blending is a proven way to reduce the environmental footprint of using petrol. But however, the risks have to be addressed. The concerns have to be allayed by the government. So highlight the need for more research and more transparency from the government before rolling out ethanol 27. So provide that balanced assessment. Never criticize the program entirely because the program is proven to have a lot of benefits. Yes, there are concerns and risk factors, but that is where you should stress upon the need for more research and more transparency. That can be a suggestion from your side in the conclusion to your answer. Now, let's move on to the next article. There's another important editorial on page 6 related to history, related to art and culture. Recently, India successfully brought back one of the most ancient relics, the Piprava relics. And this was a huge diplomatic victory for India. In Hong Kong, there is a very popular auction house, Sotheby's, where this ancient relic, which is of great religious, cultural, and spiritual significance, it was being auctioned off. The moment India heard about the Piprava relics being auctioned at Sotheby's in Hong Kong, India carried out a diplomatic intervention. We engaged all the leverage that we had with Hong Kong and other stakeholders, with Sotheby's, and we managed to secure the Piprava relics and we brought it back to India. This was seen as a very big legal diplomatic victory to protect India's cultural heritage. So let's dive a little deep into this article and go beyond the topic as well, because I feel this topic is very relevant. In recent times, India has repatriated a lot of antique arts and antique cultural items which were stolen and smuggled out of India. So now the return of Piprava relics is a very big milestone for India in terms of protection of its cultural heritage. So from a prelims point of view, first let's understand what are the Piprava relics. The Piprava relics, it was discovered during an excavation in 1898. In today's Uttar Pradesh, there is a Buddhist stupa, the Piprava stupa, very close to the Nepal border. This place is believed to be the site of the ancient city of Kapilavastu, which is where Lord Gautam Buddha is believed to have spent his childhood after taking birth in Lumbini. Lumbini is the birthplace of Lord Buddha, which today is in Nepal. But the ancient city of Kapilavastu has been lost. So there are two theories over here as to where Kapilavastu was located. There is one narrative which points towards Kapilavastu being present in Nepal itself. But there is another narrative with some archaeological evidence which indicates that Piprava in UP might have been the ancient city of Kapilavastu. So at the Piprava stupa, which has a lot of historical cultural significance, the then archaeological excavation done under British rule in 1898 led to the discovery of these relics. You can see here in the image, to concentrate here, you will see this wooden frame like structure, and inside the glass you find these small dots. This is believed to be the bone fragments of Lord Buddha himself. In Buddhism, it is widely believed that the fragments that you see here, it is believed to be the bone fragments of Lord Gautam Buddha himself. So there are many such relics of Lord Buddha which are scattered, the Kapilavastu relics as it is called. For example, in the National Museum in Delhi, India already holds some of the Kapilavastu relics. And the Piprava relics was one such lost legacy of India. Post its discovery, it had been uh, changing hands over different owners during colonial period. They were changing hands with regard to the ownership of this precious relic, and eventually it found its way out of India. After many decades, it was rediscovered. It came back into public limelight, and it was put up for an auction at Sotheby Auction House in Hong Kong. So there are many such global auction houses like Christie's, for example, right? Christie's, Sotheby's, they are known for auctioning their highly valuable cultural items, including antiquities. So the moment India heard about the auction of Piprava relics, immediately the government of India, Ministry of External Affairs, along with Ministry of Culture and Archaeological Survey of India, they intervened and we exercised all the influence and leverage that we had to prevent the Piprava relics from being auctioned. We stopped the auction itself and we managed to get hold of it, and it was returned back to India. India is the rightful owner of the Piprava relics, and the sacred Buddhist relics has now found its way back home to India. Very soon, India will be planning a public display as well, and we might even send the relics to other countries, to other Buddhist nations, as part of our Buddhist diplomacy. See, when India projects its soft power influence through its foreign relations, we focus heavily on our Buddhist heritage, especially in many Asian countries where Buddhism is still a majority religion or popular religion. India leverages the Buddhist heritage to gain that soft power influence. For example, many years ago, I still remember the Kapilavastu relics, which was with India, it had been displayed in Colombo in an exhibition organized by the Indian High Commission in Colombo. That generated a lot of goodwill for India towards India amongst the Sri Lankan population, as Sri Lanka is a Buddhist majority nation. So we push Buddhist influence, our Buddhist heritage across Asian countries, from Sri Lanka to Nepal to Bhutan, and across Southeast and East Asia, from Japan to China to South Korea, from Vietnam to Singapore to Indonesia to Thailand. Across this region where Buddhism is popular, India pushes its Buddhist diplomacy. We have an initiative called the Buddhist Circuit Project, under which India is improving the tourist infrastructure of all the Buddhist sites to attract tourists from other countries to create that close cultural bond. So, the return of Piprava relics is not just a cultural milestone, it's a diplomatic milestone as well. It reiterates the fact that India is the birthplace of Buddhism. It reiterates the fact that India is seen as the pivotal head of promoting Buddhist influence. And this has geopolitical implications because China often tries to run away with the narrative that somehow it controls the Buddhist diplomatic narrative. While India is the rightful owner to push Buddhism, China has tried to overtake India many times. For example, in Nepal, when India was trying to develop Lumbini, the birthplace of Lord Buddha, China took over that project and China ended up funding the development of the Lumbini site. So there is a subtle geopolitical competition as well when it comes to Buddhist diplomacy between India and China. So the return of Piprava relics has a lot of significance in this regard. Now the point is, this was definitely a big success for India. It marks a legal and diplomatic success. There is no doubt about it. But however, India has to learn lessons from this episode. We have to put in place better legal, diplomatic, and administrative measures to prevent such artifacts from being stolen from India, from being auctioned at these auction houses. See, there is a UNESCO convention in this regard. There is a UNESCO convention which prohibits and prevents the illegal and illicit trade of cultural property. Any cultural property, it can't be sold by the illegitimate owners who might have stolen an antique item or who might have bought a stolen antique product. The original ownership is recognized under UNESCO's convention that protects the ownership of cultural property. India has a dedicated law as well in this regard, the Antiquities and Arts Act of 1974. This allows for the antique cultural items that are stolen and taken out of India to be repatriated. For example, recently from United States, from United Kingdom as well, hundreds of artifacts and antique items belonging to Indian temples and Indian sites have been successfully returned back. And this is a success of our legal diplomatic pressure that has worked. But we need better systems to prevent this from happening again. Because see, Piprava relic was returned back safely because not just the government of India worked very proactively, but it partnered with a private company. This was done in partnership with Godrej Industries. The Godrej Group collaborated with MEA and other stakeholders It was essentially a public-private partnership that led to the retrieval of the Piprava relics. You might remember how Vijay Mallya, who is now an absconding fugitive offender, at one point secured Tipu Sultan's sword from a similar auction in United Kingdom and brought it back safely to India. Similarly, there have been many such private-led enterprises as well to recover these lost items, and the government of India also has led many such efforts. But however, these efforts are not enough. Since India is a place of rich historical civilization, a lot of antique items which are of great cultural significance have been lost, they have been stolen, they have been trafficked. So, what we need to do is to create which can be linked with these auction houses and the global customs authorities. So, the moment they detect any such cultural item being sold or auctioned or trafficked, it should be flagged and it should be brought back to India. The government of India should work with experts, the Ministry of Culture, Archaeological Survey of India, and other stakeholders, with historians. They have to create a digital registry of these lost antique items and relics and ensure that the database is made available at these global auction houses and as well as at the global custom authorities of other countries with Interpol as well. The moment they detect any match, it should raise an alert and India should deploy the legal diplomatic measures to safely repatriate these artifacts and relics. That is the system we need to put in place. A legal, diplomatic, and administrative mechanism has to be created to prevent such artifacts from being stolen and trafficked. And if at all they're detected, they should be brought back to India. That is what we take away from this article. So please take up this practice question for your answer writing practice. Now let's look at an important column from page number 9. This column is related to the topic of rules based international order and how the policies of Donald Trump is threatening to disrupt the rules based international order. See, I'm sure this is a topic you guys have heard many times before, so I would not like to waste your time. I would like to discuss something about the history, the background of the rules based international order. And I want you to understand just one thing from this article. I want you to understand how the United States has always manipulated the international order to suit its own hegemonic interests. It's not just Donald Trump. I know Trump is a erratic leader known for making mindless decisions and he doesn't care about how disruptive his decisions can be for the global order. Even if it creates chaos and volatility, Trump is always willing to push ahead with his policies and agenda. But the article, it gives us a wake up call that it's not just Trump who's threatening the international order. United States has always been doing this. The United States has always been a hegemonic power. Maybe Trump is doing it in a very crude way, in a crass manner. But the American government and its foreign policy has always been driven by this agenda to control the global order so that the US remains the predominant global power. That is the essence that comes out of this article. The writer refers to this very important term, Pax Americana. Do you know what is Pax Americana? Students of PSIR would definitely be aware of it. Pax Americana is a reference to the world order that was created by the United States post Second World War. That is after 1945, with the defeat of the Axis powers and decline of European powers, United States emerged as a superpower. As it was being challenged by the Soviet Union, the United States still remained the foremost superpower because of its economic and military might, because of its political stability. And the US always wanted to push the world towards a unipolar world where the US remains the sole superpower. That explains why the US ran into a conflict a Cold War with the Soviets, as USSR was also rising up as a global power. Pax Americana is a term used by political scientists, geopolitical experts, and historians to refer to this world order that the US carefully created after 1945 to suit these interests of United States. So how did they do it? How did they shape the world order after 1945? Be it United Nations, the Bretton Woods institutions of World Bank and IMF, even the WTO that came up much later. All these global multilateral platforms, these international organizations, do you think they took birth on their own? Do you think it was really a collective global effort which gave birth to these organizations? No. It was primarily the United States which was the architect of the new international institutions. If you look at the last 70 years of global geopolitics, it has been largely defined by the role of these institutions, the role of UN, its organs, and various agencies and programs of the UN. World Bank and IMF, their role in controlling the global banking and financial infrastructure, and as well as WTO in regulating global trade. So basically, the world order that we know has been built by the United States to suit its own interests. And this world order that we live in is what is often referred to as Pax Americana. It was an American led world order designed to suit America's interests alone, meaning America will never tolerate a rival or a counter. America will never allow another global power to rise up. They will go to any extent to curb and counter any emerging threat. That explains why the US is a meddling power, why it interferes in every nook and corner of the world. Not only because it has the economic and military strength to do it, but it is core American foreign policy agenda to counter any rival and any threat and keep them contained, keep them restricted. This explains why the US counters Russia. It explains why US counters China. It also explains why India can never trust United States. Though US and India are labeled as the most closest strategic partners of this century, the India-US relationship is labeled as the most defining partnership of 21st century. But India should not forget the experience that we have had with United States from 1947 till at least 2001. That was a period where US was always meddling with India, trying to bully India as well. Especially post 1971, the US even became hostile to India, supported Pakistan during the liberation of Bangladesh war. The US took every step possible to prevent India from becoming a nuclear and space power. So the US has been a bully. It has been a hegemonic power. Whether Trump is there or not doesn't matter. Irrespective of Trump's erratic policies, America's foreign policy approach is always designed to push for a unipolar world order. So Trump's policies might disrupt the Pax Americana order. It might change the rules based order. It might evolve into something new, but it will always be designed to suit America's interests. That is why America's foreign policy is hegemonic in nature. Now, some of you might counter my argument. You might say, sir, hasn't United States helped so many countries? You are absolutely right. In 2001, it was United States which supported China's entry into WTO. The US gave full support for China to join WTO. It was US which brought Japan into G7. It was US which brought India and even China, Indonesia and Saudi Arabia into G20. It is United States which has helped India to join export control regimes such as MTCR, Australia Group and Wassenaar Arrangement. Without this American support, we would not have got the membership for MTCR, Australia Group and Wassenaar Arrangement. So what about this? Isn't US helping others as well? Doesn't US provide lot of assistance? when there is a disaster or an economic crisis, don't you think World Bank and IMF have provided tremendous financial support? World Bank has given so many loans. Even today, India relies on World Bank loans for developmental projects and infrastructure projects. We have relied on IMF support when we have faced a liquidity crisis in 91. Even today, many countries which are facing a economic crisis rely on bailout package from IMF, like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and the others. So you can argue that hasn't US helped other countries as well? Now let me tell you something very interesting. Yes, US has assisted many countries. It has given a lot of help, but this is always limited. It is always restricted. They will show some flexibility to help other powers to grow. The US has always helped other small powers to grow. There is no doubt about it. But once they cross a certain limit, once they become a direct challenge to the US is known to restrict them and contain them. I'll give you one example. Many decades ago, Japan became a major exporter of clothing items, garments, and textiles. It flooded the American market. In fact, Japanese cloth and garment exports, they overtook America's domestic production of garments and textiles. You know what US did? US used its leverage against Japan, though Japan was an ally, a friend, a trusted partner, forced Japan to cut down its exports into US, restricted market access for Japanese cloth exports into the American market. And this had a huge economic impact on Japan. US has done this with everyone. It has done the same with European partners. Some of you might argue, sir, didn't US launch the Marshall Plan to help European countries to reconstruct and develop their countries after they were devastated by the World War? But please don't think US did this out of goodwill. The US strategy was to stabilize Europe and use Europe as a plank to build American supremacy, American dominance. That's why European powers, they are always under the thumb of the United States. And now US is doing the same with India as well. They used India when they wanted India. In 2001, after 9/11 attacks, they needed India for counterterrorism, for sharing intelligence to target Al Qaeda, Taliban, and other Pakistan sponsored terrorist groups. They needed India's nuclear market to push American nuclear reactors into our country. So they signed the India US civil nuclear deal. They gave an exemption for us from signing NPT, the Non Proliferation Treaty, and supported India's membership to all export control regimes, including the nuclear suppliers group. Don't think America has done this out of its own goodwill and keeping India's good interests in mind. Whatever America has always done is always to suit its own interests. So, this is what the writer is trying to bring out. Trump's policies is nothing new. Many people have a misconception that Trump is the only one who's threatening and disrupting the world order. It's not Trump alone. As I said, Trump might be doing it in a crass manner, in a very overt manner. But even previous US administrations have been doing the same. They manipulate the world order to suit the Pax Americana agenda. Meaning, America should be supreme. America should control the world order. And for that, they will subvert all these instruments. They will control the World Bank, control the IMF, manipulate United Nations, use every platform available to suit America's interests. So, according to this article, the world order will not collapse because of Trump. Don't think Trump's policies will lead to the breakdown of international order. No, it will lead to a new evolution. A new sort of world order will come up, which is carefully crafted by the US, controlled by the US to ensure American dominance and control. We have seen this from 1945. It is likely to continue at least for some more years. That is a takeaway from this article, which I found to be very interesting. Next, on page 10, India and UK, they are working out the prisoner related issues. Because for United Kingdom, dealing with illegal migration and even with criminals, foreign criminals, has become a top national priority. See, many European countries, they have been flooded with a lot of illegal migrants, particularly from countries like India. And there are a lot of foreign nationals who are in jail in United Kingdom and across European countries. So in the UK, there is growing pressure to deport these foreign criminals and to deport all the illegal migrants. Traditionally, West European countries, which were seen as more liberal, they were more welcoming of migrant workers, including sometimes illegal migrants. They would even host the foreign criminals who would be lodged in their own prisons if they commit a crime in their country, right? They would be allowed to spend their jail term, their jail sentence, mandatorily they had to serve in that country itself. So these policies of previous European governments, it has led to a lot of resentment amongst the European citizens, be it in France, in Germany, in the Scandinavia region as well. Across every European country, there is this sentiment against foreigners, against illegal migrants, against foreign criminals, especially. This has led to the rise of far right wing political parties. The far right extremist political organizations are on the rise in every European nation. Some of the parties are openly fascist, they openly advocate neo Nazi ideology. From Italy to Germany to UK to France, we are seeing a significant support base for far right-wing extremist parties. The same has been happening in United Kingdom as well. In Germany, you have a far right-wing party called AfD, which has started winning more votes. In Italy, you already have a far right-wing party in power, the party of Miss Melanie, right? In France as well, we have seen far right-wing parties making significant gains in recent years. Same with United Kingdom. In the UK, the traditional parties are the Labour Party and Conservative Party. But people are frustrated with their policies. They blame these parties, their governments, for the large entry of illegal migrants and foreign criminals into the UK. So, support base for right wing extremist organizations is growing. A far right wing party called Reform UK has been making significant gains. That is why, to curb the rise of far right wing politics, the UK has started taking up some extreme steps, extreme measures. The Keir Starmer government came to power on the promise that they will tackle the problem of illegal migration and foreign criminals. So now the Keir Starmer government is trying to deliver on this, and they have introduced a new policy of deportation. Deport now, appeal later. Deport now, appeal later. Now let's say there is an illegal migrant who gets caught in the UK. Or let's say there is a criminal who has committed a crime in the UK. He has been convicted, now he's going to be jailed. In these cases, the illegal migrant and the criminal, they will not be kept in the UK anymore. They will be deported first to their home country, and then they can appeal for asylum on the grounds of human rights. Since previously they were very tolerant for appeals of asylum, where illegal migrants and criminals, refugees would seek asylum in these countries, they would allow them to file cases, fight the cases for many years. And by the time the case could end up, these illegal migrants or criminals, they would even escape and they would end up integrating into the European society. So now the approach is deport now, send them back to their home country first, then they can appeal against it. Let the court process happen through online video calls. If, let's say, illegal migrant from India has been caught, he will not be kept in UK anymore. He will not be allowed the legal process of appealing for asylum. He will be deported first to India, and from India, if they want, they can appeal and attend the court cases through online video links. This is the policy being rolled out by UK, and this will have an impact on India. See, these policies of other countries which affects India is relevant because as of today, we have 10,500 prisoners who are Indian citizens held in foreign jails across the world. Across all the countries in the world, right, there are 10,500 plus Indians who are in foreign jails. Out of them, 300 plus are in the United Kingdom. Some have been detained as illegal migrants, some have committed crimes, and they are serving their prison sentence. So once this policy takes effect, come into effect immediately, those Indians who are languishing in British jails, they will be deported right away. And the cases against them will continue from here. If they want to appeal for asylum, that also has to happen from India itself. Meaning, these Indian illegal migrants or Indian criminals who have been jailed in UK, they will be deported immediately, and their right to appeal will come later. This might adversely affect genuine legal migrants as well if they get caught in some of the criminal cases. Let's say a legal migrant has committed no crime, but somehow suspicion falls on them and they get caught. They stand the risk of getting deported first, and only then they can appeal against it. So there might be an adverse effect if it is not properly implemented, if it is abused and misused. Even genuine legal migrants could suffer and they might be deported immediately. This is something you need to note down. Next, a very important development from the field of economy. The Lok Sabha has passed the Income Tax Bill 2025. As you all know, the government is looking to essentially simplify the income tax code. The IT Act of 1961 is considered to be very bulky and outdated. So the Modi government has been making an attempt to simplify the IT Act, to use simple language, to cut down unnecessary provisions and sections, and make it a simple code to streamline income tax collection. So the IT bill was proposed earlier this year in February by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman as part of the Union budgetary announcement. And the first draft, which was tabled in the Parliament, it was taken up for further review by the Select Committee of the Parliament. This was thoroughly reviewed by the Parliamentary Committee and it suggested many recommendations and changes. So the government withdrew the first bill, incorporated all the changes that were suggested by the Parliamentary Committee, and now it has brought a second version of this bill, which was introduced in Lok Sabha and it has been passed in the Lok Sabha as well. So once it passes through Rajya Sabha and receives the assent of the president, it will come into effect as an act. But one provision is what raises concern in this bill. This bill is giving tremendous powers to the IT officials. IT officials will basically have a legal right to access your emails, your social media accounts, your travel itinerary, your spending expenses as well. Everything can be accessed by IT officials as part of their right to search and seize. If they believe that you're evading taxes or underreporting your income, IT officials can now invoke these special powers, which will make the IT department extremely powerful. They can even force the suspect to reveal all the passcodes, all the access codes to all the devices they have. It could be your mobile phone, your laptop, your digital watch, or any online account or social media account. You will have to mandatorily submit all the access codes and passwords when it is demanded by the IT authorities. If you deny access, you can be jailed for this. You can be punished for it. Now, this has raised a lot of alarm. Opposition leaders are raising their concern that such tremendous power can be misused. It could be a breach of your privacy. Because don't forget, right to privacy is recognized as a fundamental right under Article 21 through the K.S. Puttaswamy judgment. Your data privacy, data security could be compromised. So there are some stringent provisions like this which has raised alarm and it is being opposed by the opposition parties. But most likely the bill will be passed because the government has enough numbers in the parliament. But the positive is that the bill has definitely simplified the IT code. Previously, the IT Act of 61 consisted of more than 5 lakh words. Now it has been reduced by half. The new IT bill hardly has 2.59 lakh words. Even the number of sections and provisions has come down by a very significant number. So this will simplify the IT code, but the tremendous powers being given to the IT department is what raises concern. Now coming to the prelim section, two small articles and after that we can wrap up the session for today. On page 14, it has been reported that the Arakan Army has raised a strong opposition to the elections that are underway in Myanmar. Myanmar was under military rule since 2021 to 2025. The last election to take place in Myanmar was in 2020. The party NLD, the National League for Democracy, which is headed by Aung San Suu Kyi, had conclusively won that election for the second time. In 2015 as well, Aung San Suu Kyi's party had won the election, formed the government as well, as Myanmar had transitioned into a democracy. In 2020, again, the same party had won the election, but this was seen as a threat by Myanmar's military. Myanmar has been under military rule for many decades, from 1962 until 2015. Myanmar was always under some sort of military rule, military regime. Only for 5 years, from 2015 to 2020, there was some sort of an elected government in place. But in 2020, when NLD was again sweeping the election, the army stepped in. The Tatmadaw is the reference for Myanmar's military. It again stepped in, nullified the election result, declared the election as a fraud, and declared a national emergency and took over power again. So since then, our neighbor, Myanmar, is going through a civil war because the military regime was strongly opposed by the pro-democracy forces and all the ethnic armed groups. So since then, Myanmar has been consumed by this conflict, and today the military is losing ground. In the last couple of years, the rebel forces, the ethnic armed insurgent groups, and the pro-democracy forces, they've all come together and they have fought against the Tatmadaw, and they have even taken the territory from the military. So day by day, Myanmar's military has been losing control, and there was a fear that Myanmar might break up into multiple countries. So as a last resort to save itself, Myanmar's military has now started organizing elections to end this brutal civil war. So the intention is not to bring back democracy and stabilize the country. The intention is to seek a escape route. Because if the military doesn't hold elections, the armed groups which now control the country, large parts of the country, they will declare their own independence, leading to the breakup of Myanmar. So that is why Myanmar's military has started the next round of elections. But this is being strongly opposed by a rebel group called the Arakan Army. So you should know some details about Arakan Army. The Arakan Army is made up of the Rakhine ethnic people. They are from the Rakhine state that you can see here. The Rakhine state of Myanmar, it borders Bay of Bengal and Bangladesh. It's located right next to India. It's located on the borders of Bangladesh and Bay of Bengal, very close to India. This is where you find the native Rakhine people of the Rakhine ethnic group. They're also referred to as the Arakanese. Arakan is a reference to the mountain range, the Arakan mountain range over here. And the people of this region, the Rakhine people, are also referred to as the Arakanese. And they're all Buddhists. So these Rakhine Buddhists, the Arakanese, they have a long history of opposition against Myanmar's military. They have even colluded with other armed groups like the Kachin rebels, who operate on India-Myanmar border, and they have jointly targeted Myanmar historically. It is the same group, the Arakan Army, which has targeted the Rohingya Muslim minorities. The Rohingya Muslims, who are in minority in Rakhine state, have historically faced oppression and targeted violence at the hands of the Rakhine Buddhists. The Arakanese and the Arakan Army is the one which has targeted them, almost leading to allegations of genocide, right? Which has triggered a big Rohingya refugee crisis in the past decade. So it's a very unstable region, very volatile region, but it is very crucial because of its access to Bay of Bengal. There are hydrocarbon reserves present as well over here within the exclusive economic zone of Myanmar. There are strategic ports located. India has built a port over here called the Sitwe port. China has built a strategic port, the Kyokfu port, as part of its Belt and Road Initiative. China has built pipelines as well, carrying oil and gas through the Rakhine region. So geopolitically, it's very significant. And today, the Arakan Army controls most of Rakhine and the region around it. They have captured important cities, ports, towns, checkpoints. And some of the border checkpoints closer to Bangladesh and India border also has been captured by the Arakan Army. So they are rejecting the elections which Myanmar's army is trying to conduct. Myanmar's army doesn't have control over large parts of the country. Many rebel groups which have formed an alliance, they have taken over many parts of the country, and today Myanmar is struggling for survival. So it's a very important update. The Arakan army rejects the ongoing elections which is being conducted by Myanmar's army. Then coming to the last topic, in the science page in the supplement section, the Hindu carries an article on some latest research with regard to development of a universal vaccine for dengue. Dengue is one of the deadliest vector-borne diseases, which has a disproportionate impact on tropical, subtropical countries and poor, underdeveloped countries. So, with regard to the efforts for developing a universal vaccine, some hurdles have come up. There has been a new breakthrough as well. So, all the technical details are covered in this article. But you don't have to go through the article. It's full of technical details, not relevant for the exam. But reading about dengue, its severity, what causes it, the basic facts can be relevant for a science and tech question in prelims. So this is a vector-borne disease, and the vector is a mosquito. The Aedes mosquitoes, they are the ones that transmit the dengue virus. The Dengue or the dengue virus is transmitted primarily through the bite of an infected Aedes mosquito. And those who get infected, some of them might be asymptomatic. They may not show any symptoms initially. But once symptoms develop, it can get very severe very quickly, from very high fever to nausea to rashes to severe body pain. These are the classic symptoms of dengue fever, and there is no vaccine, no specific line of treatment which is available. It's only symptomatic treatment which is provided. There is no specific treatment or drug available to cure dengue. There is no vaccine as well. And it primarily affects tropical, subtropical countries where mosquitoes are known to thrive. It primarily affects poor, underdeveloped nations and even developing countries. So, poor people and vulnerable communities are at greater risk, especially slums in an urban area, for example, wherever there is excessive water logging or very poor sanitation and hygiene. Those are the places which are more affected by such vector-borne diseases. So, this is a problem that primarily affects the global south, the developing, underdeveloped world, and especially the poor and vulnerable communities. And the worst part with dengue is that if you get dengue for the second time, there are very high chances it can become severe dengue, which is usually fatal. See, generally, with other diseases, it's the other way around. Once you are infected with a disease, next time you would have built immunity against it. Correct? But dengue is not like that. It's the opposite. If you get dengue second time, chances are very high it can turn severe dengue, and this can be even become fatal. So this is where the challenge lies with regard to development of a universal vaccine, and researchers have made a big breakthrough in this regard. So with this, we can conclude our discussion for today. We have covered all the key articles with a detailed analysis. So I hope you guys have understood everything. And if you benefited from the session, do press the like button, share your comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That is it. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.